Hello and welcome to the DrivingMaul show. Hi, I'm Paul here on New Zealand Sport Radio. And yes, another round of Super Rugby in the bag. Well, a kind of partial round because, again, we've had another game, unfortunately, postponed. And in both Super Rugby Pacific and Super Rugby Aupaki. But we'll talk about both of those. We've also got some Six Nations been happening, so I have a chat about that as well during the show today. And joining me to go through all of that kind of news is Mr. Harris. How are you doing, sir?
Very good, thank you, Paul. Running a little bit late joining the show this evening, mate, but hey, I made it. Always a privilege and a pleasure to be on the TDM.
Oh, well, yes, I was thinking, am I going to be doing this alone again? But no, we decided that actually, no, you jumped in at the last second there. Not just, but not in the Northland hoodie this time, in the Northland rugby jacket. Wow. Boy, you've been getting the old merch in the old post, haven't you?
Yeah, a bit of an old one, this one, mate. Yeah. I only got this year, mate, so it's only a couple of months old.
So you're getting all the freebies from up north, I tell you. Deary me. God, this is probably because he's been out to watch some under 20s Blues Cup kind of action. Did you get to see any at the weekend?
No, I can't say I did, Paul. I was pretty much stuck at home for the weekend. So, but I did take the opportunity to watch a lot of the stuff that was on the box.
Yes, and there was an awful lot of rugby on the box. Let's be honest. This weekend, that's where I was kind of watching as well, as I had my daughters this weekend. So, also I didn't get to see all of the games in full, but still saw a whole chunk of them, as well as getting to go to the end of last week. I went to the Super Rugby Aupaki opening game between the Chiefs and Matatu, which I'm finding extremely difficult to say. Sorry, folks, my dyslexia means I find all sorts of words really difficult to say. There you go. So yes, I got to see that game at the weekend, and is there how many teams do you think have actually won a game of Super Rugby women's level, as far as New Zealand goes, anyway?
How many teams have won a game? Probably just one.
Yep. So the Chiefs beat the Blues last year. The Chiefs beat Mata two in the warm-up game, and they beat them in the opening game as well. So there'll be 3 games now at Super Rugby kind of level, if you include pre-season games here in New Zealand, and they've all been won by one team. So I did ask Alan Bunting if they went into into tomorrow's game against the Hurricanes as big favourites, and he was like, "Well, we haven't seen the Hurricanes yet, so we don't know, do we?" And I'm like, "Well, that's because they've not been training. They've all been shut in their own hotel rooms, so they've had no training. You've won all the games you've ever played. I think you go in as heavy favourites." Stephen?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, very, very, very much so. Talk about playing it down.
Yeah, exactly. So there's 2 games tomorrow, folks. We've got the Chiefs versus the Hurricanes at 3:35, followed by the Blues versus Matatu at 7:05. Do check both those out. Obviously, both on Sky Sports. I don't know if they're putting these ones on Prime as well, like they did the other game on free to air. But obviously, they're on Sky Sports. I will be at both those games, so do look out for those. And I'm just going to share a little clip of some post-match stuff from the game at the weekend.
Game I want to play straight away because it's so exciting.
So yeah, you can see there, Portia Woodman really excited and wanting to play straight away again. She's so excited. So
that really was a little clip.
Oh, that was a very tiny clip. Yes. But and we also obviously had the first ever try to be scored. Back down to Taupo is going to be like tonight. Bit of a party on the bus.
I think it's going to be a lot of, I think it's going to be a lot of laughs, a lot of,
So yes, you can see how excited, how happy they were after that after that game. for the full interviews of those, head over, become a supporter of New Zealand Sport Radio over at patreon.com/NZ Sport Radio. I've got the full interviews on there. Also, my thoughts around the game and some stuff around the game as well that's happened on that one. Simon's confirming that the Chiefs Hurricanes match is on Prime from 3 o'clock, which basically is just half an hour of build-up, folks. The kickoff is still at 3:35. It's not half an hour earlier kickoff on Prime than it is on Sky. The game still kicks off at the same time. But did you watch the game last Thursday, Stephen?
I just saw the highlights. I saw about the last 10 minutes when Matatu actually came back into the game and could have just stopped. Could have almost got a draw at the end, right at the end of the game. But I think the conversion out near the touchline was just a little bit too much to ask for that particular player, the Australian player. I think it was who missed the conversion. But man, they'll probably look at a few missed opportunities along the way. I'll tell you what, I love the look of Grace Steinmetz, who plays out in the backs. God, she's got some good footwork.
Yeah, so Mackenzie was the one who missed that conversion out there on it's out wide. But also you can see the difference between players like Kelly Brazier, Portia Woodman, who are part of that. The sort of the seven setup, full-time professionals. You can see the difference between in class and just awareness of those kind of players. I did think Ruby Tui was found it a bit more difficult to convert across the 15s and was getting caught out of position a fair amount with that. Knowing when to come up, when to be back for the kick, etc. But that's obviously something that, given enough games, she'll learn. Unfortunately, there's only 2 more games to go, and she's dropped from the bench for tomorrow. So this is one of the big things, really, isn't it? It is going to be over and done really, really quickly. The Chiefs went out to a lead in that first half, and basically spent the second half defending, and just couldn't get out their own half for that one. Matatu really came back well, and their head coach was talking about that they know they can play the full 80. Again, due to player welfare issues, it was only 35 minutes each half, which I didn't realise was going to happen. Yep. But I did know that they were going to have the extended squads and more substitutions.
Yeah, I thought that caught me out as well. I thought I watched the last 20 minutes, but of course it was the last 15 minutes, wasn't it? So got caught a little bit short there, but it would have been interesting had there been another 5 minutes in that game. Oh,
absolutely. I think that Matatu would have come through at the end there. I mean, a lot of defending, I say, by the Chiefs showed some real heart, but were running out of steam at the end. And look, folks. They played last Saturday. They played Thursday. They're playing tomorrow, so Tuesday, and then playing Sunday again. So it's a lot of games in a short period of time. You've also got the Hurricanes, who have basically got to be shut up in their hotel rooms, and reading reports about their media session today, where they're saying, 4 days ago this game was not going to be happening tomorrow. So it's it really is last minute thrown together. The Blues also didn't have enough fit players for the for pre-season game either. So look, there's been a number of just getting this happening. Now, why not just delay the whole thing? Well, because all these people have got day jobs, and there's only so much time they can take off from work to be at a tournament like this. They are down there in Taupo. So I say follow me and become a supporter. I'll be doing a bit of a kind of sort of podcast about my kind of a day at the rugby from me, and whereas I'll sort of talk about my entire day really leading up to that. So become a supporter over at New Zealand Sport over at patreon.com/NZ Sport Radio. But Super Rugby is where I think we'll be spending most of our or had a lot more games to cover at the weekend there. And Hayden, will go well. You go well too, mate. Don't forget, folks, actually, do following us at DrivingMaul on Twitter, New Zealand Sport Radio on Facebook and YouTube. We're live at 8 p.m. every evening Sorry, 8 p.m. every Monday, not every evening. 8 p.m. every Monday. And,
I couldn't do that.
not every evening. And you can also listen to the podcast and search for New Zealand Sport Radio on your favourite podcatcher as well. For that's all the socials kind of stuff that I've was listening to podcast today and thought, I don't say that at the beginning. No one knows where to go find us. They have to stumble on. Oh, dear me. But the weekend from a Super Rugby point of view kicked off with the Blues versus the Highlanders. And Stephen, we talked about the previous weekend where the Hurricanes versus the Highlanders was perhaps the worst Super Rugby game we've seen in kind of living memory. And you were on our old group chat going, geez, this isn't so good in the first half. And then suddenly in the second half, some rugby actually happened, which was it really did turn around, didn't it?
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. I suppose we should maybe at least cut the Blues a little bit of slack. They had a few, some really, really late-ish changes that pretty much happened that afternoon. So that probably wouldn't have helped them. But boy, there were times they looked like they met in the car park. And that's certainly not taking anything away from the Highlanders. They had that one real opportunity. But once again, they were hurt with injuries during the first half, losing Thomas Emanga Jensen, who looked really, really good when he was on the field, and also a bit of an injury to Connor Garden Bishop. So there was plenty of disruption for the Highlanders as well. But whatever was said at the break, it just came out. It just seemed as though both sides came out and played a little bit more rugby, but the Blues played more of the rugby than the Highlanders did.
Yep, picking up 4 tries in that second half. There, a couple for Tane Plumtree, who had a real cracking game. He really did stand out. Someone who obviously his name is he's got a family name that's pretty famous already, and starting to live up to that. Been kind of flying under the radar a bit but I think that was probably his breakout game with this one. And you're right. Look, all the teams are suffering with COVID as well as injuries, folks. Brad Weber could have a stretch apparently have played at the weekend, listening to the post-match that Clayton McMillan gave, but they decided to trust their squad. But again, I think he must have had some sort of COVID thing that meant he disappeared and wasn't available for some time. And look, folks, we're sort of seeing kind of how thin these squads are. Sure, the Hurricanes have been the most impacted one recently, with reportedly 20 odd players being sort of out through COVID, even though there's no official number from the team. But you look at the Blues. I mean, having to play Bryce Heem at 12. You're like, wow, this is a very thin squad when you're putting your wingers into 12. I think all the Super Rugby squads have got similar issues, Steve.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned somebody like Bryce Heem, because I just thought he was struggling in the first half, but boy, he like the rest of his team came out and looked a completely different player. But I suppose what tells you, Paul, where they were going in terms of we talk about Tane Plumtree before. Remember, he played for the Blues 20s, but you also had Tavita Funaki, the reserve halfback as well, only a youngster, Joseph Ratumaveku Nepkins as well. So they had a couple of young guys also on the bench. Soani Vikena was on the bench as well. So it just shows you that they actually had to dig deep. So I suppose from Leon McDonald's point of view, I think he'd be pretty happy with his young charges. And more importantly, that they were able to get the job done despite all the late changes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And as I say, every team is having to bring in players to a greater degree. You got to say actually that perhaps the Blues got off a bit lucky. 18 penalties, but only 1 yellow card during that game. 18, geez, that is a lot. But they really did just dominate territory in that second half, which basically meant that they won the game there with that one.
Yeah, and I was going to say, Paul, a couple of really good performances as well. Stephen Perifetta has been really good at fullback slotted into that first 5, and it's almost like he just didn't miss a beat. And of course, Zane Sullivan, we know he's got a heck of a hoot in his game, but we saw a little bit of his running game as well. But I thought there were also good performances there from Dalton Papali'i, Tane Plumtree, and listen, just a bit of a thumbs up for Kurt Eklund, playing some really good, consistent rugby at the moment, and Sam Darry, who we may have had a few little doubts about, especially during NPC last year, is just coming on nicely.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, the Blues are showing us what we kind of thought about pre-season, was that they were going to be one of the top 3 teams in this competition and challenging for it. Nocturnal Rights is saying how blunt with the Highlanders attack when you take out Peter Manga Jensen. Yep, they really are struggling for this one. So far, as he says, 6 tries so far for the for the Highlanders, and only 1 by a back so far this season. And the reason that I'm wearing my Southland jersey was basically because the only good thing the Highlanders have done so far this season is actually have a good away jersey that's honouring the Highlanders. Yeah, look, it's been a very, very tough one. Look, if they don't win a game in this first half of the season, which is against all the New Zealand teams, they could be in trouble of missing out on the finals, folks. Yes, they might beat the Australian sides when it comes to that part of the tournament, but if they've lost all their games against the Kiwi sides, they're going to have no points in the table. So things are starting to look really, really worrying for them. And then we get news today that they've put back their media conference and till tomorrow because they've got so many cases of COVID, they might not be playing this weekend.
Wow.
And guess who they're due to play this weekend, Stephen?
Oh yeah, that knowing Moana Pacifica, knowing their luck with New Zealand sides playing, it's probably MP. Yeah. Yep,
they're up against MP this season. They're up against Moana Pacifica supposedly on Friday night as Moana Pacifica. Now that as the Stuff article said, Moana Pacifica have now got themselves out of their COVID thing, but they just can't find anyone to play, which is really harsh, but it's true. Unfortunately,
I think I should get onto the phone to Cam Bell at the Northland Union and see if he can throw together a Northland team for at least a hit-out match for Moana Pacifica.
Well, you kind of say that, but Moana Pacifica is still basing themselves in Queenstown because they've basically said, well, you know what? We've got a lot of this COVID thing in New Zealand at the moment. If we go home and mix with our kids who are going to schools, we're going to get COVID. And surprise, surprise, what's happened to the teams that have gone back to their homes? They're getting COVID. And one of these you had said was,
yep, it was such a novel idea to stay in the same bubble down in Queenstown, wasn't it? Yeah, they shouldn't have moved, and I think it was always going to be an issue once they started moving around, and that's exactly what we found.
Yep. I think it is. It's just a matter of time, really, for when. Obviously, the Hurricanes have had to miss one already. We say it looks like the Highlanders are in trouble at the moment. And to me, it's a matter of time for the Blues and the Crusaders have similar issues as well. It doesn't matter what kind of precautions you take at training, at home. If you're going to mix with family and if you've got kids who go to school, there's a possibility of you catching it. So as Simon says, he thinks they should have stayed in the bubble for another month. Look, I don't know how long it should have been for, but I think it is showing that the bubbles are the way to make sure sport actually happens. So we'll have to see kind of how this progresses. But yeah, the Moana Pacifica staying in that bubble down in Queenstown looks like to have been a very sensible move by them. Let's just hope they actually get to play somebody at rugby.
Agree.
So that's a kind of that's kind of the opening game. Then we headed over the ditch for the Rebels versus the Brumbies, where I think essentially what really kind of what kind of happens, what we expect, wasn't it? The Brumbies to beat the Rebels kind of comfortably, 17-36. Rob Valentini still looking very good this season.
Oh. Yeah, he was menacing. We know that he's a very, very good ball carrier, and he showed that. Scattered a couple of players on his way to scoring the was it the first try for the Brumbies, and basically never really looked back and was just pretty much outstanding for the rest of the game.
Yep, and once you've got a nice platform back, or you've got backs like Banks and Wright and Mogg, they're going to have fun, aren't they? And boy, they did. A couple of tries for Wright, another one for Tom Banks. Look, I didn't actually stay up and watch this game, but I did. I caught the highlights. But what I missed out on was some of the fun and games that happened at the end, because the Brumbies picked up 3 yellow cards, 2 of them after time was up, because this one went on to the 86th minute when the Rebels couldn't get over the line. So something clearly was going on, and I think there's been some question marks about refereeing at this point and how things get slowed down and stuff. But look, I think the referees are making really making a big effort this year to speed things up, Stephen.
Yeah, very much so. Listen, just on the Rebels, I think they're a side that probably sticks to their structures, but unfortunately they just don't score any tries. They just, like, even the way they started the game, a lot of lateral movement. They'll go from side to side, win their rucks, but nobody's getting over the advantage line. And I think that's the real problem for this Melbourne Rebels team. And once again, you sort of look at it, only 2 tries in the second half. But if you look at how much possession that they get their wealth, they get their fair share of possession, but just not good enough to take those opportunities. I just wanted to quickly mention a player from the Brumbies who's just improving every outing, and that's Nick Frost, the very tall lock in the middle of the line out. Now, Nick Frost was part of the Canterbury under-19 team a couple of seasons ago. So he's another one that came through the Crusader system, although he is an Australian boy. But gee, looks like he could go all the way to a Wallaby jersey.
Yep, and I've got a funny feeling we'll be talking about another guy who came through the Canterbury system playing for a different Aussie province later on. Dr. Wright says that Ione shows some go forward for the Rebels. Yeah, but look, I mean, 2 clean breaks to 8 shows you that that they really, whilst they had their fair share of territory and possession, they just didn't break the line often enough to cause the Brumbies any issues. I followed up that one with an absolute cracker that ruined my picks for the weekend, because even though I might live in Chiefs country and get to more of their games than anyone else's, I just could not see them beating the Crusaders down in Christchurch. And boy, oh boy, went right down to the wire with this one, with a try after the 80th minute to Pohipi to win it. But boy, oh boy, cracking game, Steve.
It was a very good game, and once again, it looked like one of those games with about 10 minutes to go. Once again, the Crusaders are going to find a way to win the game. But credit to the Chiefs, they stuck to their attack. They kept attacking, and I must single out a player who, when I first looked at these two teams, I sort of questioned whether Bryn Gatland really was the pivot to guide this team around. But I reckon on the night, come the end of the 80 minutes, I reckon he might have got the better of Richie Mo'unga.
Well, he did in the scoreboard. That's for true. And look, he's doing it because Josh Ioane isn't available. Let's be honest on this one. And I did think missing Brad Weber, Josh Ioane, that the Chiefs were going to be in a bit of trouble with this one. But Xavier Rowe, and then also coming off the bench, Ratimer also played really well. Gatland went through the full 80, and he needed to, really. There wasn't anyone else. Again, because these squads are so thin, you're looking around at that one going, wow, they don't have a proper 10 replacement. Rivers Rehana could do, but he plays more 15 than 10, to be honest with you. Again, another one where we're thin. We're already seeing how thin some of these squads are. I mean, some of them are very deep in various places. Like, I mean, the Chiefs' locking stocks are fantastic, but in other places they have an injury and you're like, whoa, hang on, who's going to come in? And I guess Xavier Rowe last season was his first season with the Chiefs. He was the senior scrum half in pre-season because Brad Weber, being an All Black, basically didn't turn up until about 2 weeks before kickoff, because that's what the All Blacks do. Cortez Ratimer, this is his first time at Super Rugby, and then they had another young guy out of Taranaki, and you're like, wow, your senior scrum half in pre-season has got one Super Rugby season under his belt. Ouch.
I was about to say, the way Cortez Ratimer came out and played, it was almost like he was playing his 20th or 30th game of Super Rugby. He just looked so comfortable when he came on, and I think he just added a lot of spark and just created a little bit of a combination with Peter Sawakula as well. Sawakula, I thought in the first half was okay, but in the second half, just superb. And I just wonder if that was having somebody like Ratimer, who's a renowned runner of the ball, and we saw that a couple of times. Look, he just looks a ball of muscle, and I thought he was very, very good. And boy, when you want your All Blacks to stand up, well, in that pack, three of them did big time. Takiaho, Retallick, and of course Sam Cane only just proves that he still is the best seven in the country at the minute.
Yeah, look, Sam Cane's got a lot of detractors, let's be honest. He's not a flashy number seven in the same way that someone like Artie Surveyor is. A lot of his work you don't see, but he generally tops the tackle counts and does a lot of hard work that just doesn't go seen. In that one, look, Cortez Ratimer, obviously one of the 6 provinces that I get to go to is Waikato. And there was a bit of surprise amongst some of the Waikato staff that Xavier Rowe started ahead of Cortez pre-season, and that so Cortez, look, is really highly regarded, and it's just a matter of getting opportunities at some Super Rugby level. There's a lot of good scrum halves knocking around at the moment. When you got players like Fakatava, Triple T, who are both kids still, or very young players. At the moment. So, look, whilst I think if probably 12 is an area that New Zealand and perhaps actually rugby globally has got very few players at the moment, 9 is a place that is absolutely stacked with good players there at the moment.
And I think more importantly, it was mentioned during the commentary that the Crusaders had made a play for Cortez Ratimer, so he obviously decided to throw in his lot with the Chiefs. He's a Waikato boy through and through. So at the end of the day, it may not be a bad fit.
And yeah, absolutely. I think it's some players. It's good to get them away from home and away from an environment where perhaps they party too much. Other players, it's good for them to stay at home where they've got the support network around them. We don't. That's one. We're not close enough to know which one works for which players. But Cortez seems to be doing very well in his home province with that one. Cracking game. 2 teams I wouldn't be surprised if we see them in the finals. Let's be honest. No New Zealand team has won all their games now. Every team has lost a game or lost at least one game so far, which shows the competitiveness of this competition, or at least between the Blues, Crusaders, and Chiefs at the top there. We'll get to see, I guess, how the Hurricanes are going, because it'll be interesting. I've taken a week off, and what kind of team are they going to be able to put together for this weekend? Who knows?
Paul, I was going to say, it's not a bad night at the office when Will Jordan's name doesn't get mentioned too often when you're playing the Crusaders, but he's always a source of attack for the Crusaders, and he always creates plenty of problems. Just originally in the first half, Chiefs a little bit guilty in terms of kicking to him, but then they realised, you know what, we'll just kick long and behind him and just get a good chasing line. So I was really impressed. I was also impressed with Ethan Blackadder as well. I thought in a losing team, he always puts in an honest effort.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He's a player who's really has come through, and is, I guess it's going to come down to what the All Blacks want from their number 6, as to is he the right style of player? Is the balance across that the back 3 correct? With let's suppose Artie Surveyor is probably going to be playing 8, and you're probably going to have Sam, and you want to have Sam Cane at 7. So what do you need from your 6 to balance those 2 out? Really the big question mark. And he could be the right kind of player. Moving on from that game, then to after that one, we had the Reds versus the Fijian Drua. Now another one that I'll be honest, I didn't stay up and watch, but listening to all of the kind of the noise on social media afterwards was people just bigging up how wonderful the Fijian Drua had been in this game. And when I sort of went to look through at the highlights and things, it was like, well, the Reds kind of had this game in the bag and seemed to be in control the whole time until until the Fijian Drua managed to put 3 tries back to back. I mean, it was 28-9 at one point, and you're thinking this game is done and dusted, and you can imagine the Reds kind of switching off at that point.
Yeah, I think Brad Thorne and his coaching staff obviously thought the same thing as well, Paul, because they made a whole host of changes with 15 minutes to go. Taking off the likes of James O'Connor, who we know how is important to that team, but it was just enough of a sniff for the Drua to get their dander up. And I'll tell you what, a real big change, and it's been a good pickup for them, is Frank Lamani, their international halfback, who we've seen before in an Australian team. I can recall him running around for the Melbourne Rebels. I think it was a couple of seasons ago. He just created a lot of spark, and once they got their offloading game going, boy, they scored some wonderful tries, and I think it was just the spectacular nature of those tries, Paul. A couple of them from long range, and boy, it was a real good watch. And I think it's something we all enjoy about the Pacific Island style of rugby.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they did manage to even things up to 28 all. So suddenly, 27 unanswered points were scored from them. Is that right? No, 20, whatever it was. 19 unanswered points. That makes sense. That's better. Yep. 19 plus 9 makes 28. 19 unanswered points did to come back into this one. And you got to say that not Hunter Paisami. I've gone blank. I'm trying to think of who the fullback was. Pataya. Boy, he put in a very important tackle in a position that a lot of people think he is his best position, and that number 15 Wallabies jersey. I mean, Tom Banks obviously had a good game for the Brumbies, but it's definitely up for grabs at the moment. But that could be Pataya's place, because I think that 13 jersey is quite crowded at the moment, and I think he needs to be closer to the action than on the wing for me. So good to see him get a run out at 15, and from what I saw through the highlights, at least, looked like he had a good game back there. Unlike his opposite number, Mr. Kerr, who kind of waved a try in.
Yeah, I think it might have been written. He probably wouldn't want to look at the tape of those particular efforts, and he could probably learn something from Jordan Petaia, his tackle on Ratuvai. Ratuvai obviously had a little bit of inside support, but decided to go for the big bump, but got bumped over the sideline himself. But he got a little bit of his own back a few minutes later by hitting Petaia in a tackle just as he got the kick away, and I think it tickled up his ribs a little bit as well. Just on Hunter Pasami, just an absolute beast on the night with ball in hand. The man is a handful, whether he's got the ball in hand or whether he's defending. But listen, all in all, a really, really enjoyable game, and probably the one that the Drua will look at. It just got away with them from the end. Of course, Uru, who's a Fijian man himself, scored the winning try for Fiji, and then basically rubbed it in even more by winning the lineup that the Fijian boys lost. And they were basically interviewing him at the end of the game, and he said, "Listen, I always watch their eyes," and he had a funny feeling they were going to throw it to the front. So he basically shunted himself up to the front, got ahead of the jumper, and it was pretty much good night nurse. So I think a very relieved Reds outfit, who were probably expected to win a lot more comfortable than the final score ended.
Absolutely, and they were winning comfortably. Let's be honest, and until 50 minutes in the end, when and this shows you how dangerous this team is. If you're going to switch off, they will. They can play, and they will play if you give them time and space. And so that's and that's what the Fijian Drua did. And I think the Reds won the game, and the Fijian Drua won the fans, as they kind of say. But look, to get within one score of the Super Rugby AU champions is a very good showing in their first year. So you've got to say chapeau. Sorry, that's a cycling term. But yeah, hat tips to the Drua. They've great performance from them. Finally, then on Sunday we had the Waratahs versus the Force, with what has been, I guess, two sides that we've been kind of impressed with this year compared to preseason expectation. We kind of knew the Force were going to be better this year because they had a proper preseason. The Waratahs, though, have definitely surprised and impressed me with their improvement on last year. And this game, wow, the Force should have won this one. Right, they had plenty of opportunities that second half, but they just could not break down this Waratahs defence. And I don't think I can, from my point of view, the Force have got no one else but themselves to blame in this one.
Yeah, well, you could arguably say there was a presence of the Force, but it didn't quite. It didn't quite basically light itself up, shall we say? They started reasonably well, but in that first 10 minutes or so. But from there on out, it was all the the Waratahs, and when I mean the Waratahs, especially their two of their loose forwards, who I thought were just outstanding. Harris at number 8, Gamble, and Sinclair, who's filling in for Swinton, very, very good. And of course Holloway, who's a former number 8, number 6 himself. He plays
6 mainly, yeah.
In the middle row these days. Once again, just outstanding. Just gave them a lot of go forward. And listen, we were able to, for one of the few times, actually see the skills of somebody like Will Harrison at fullback, who, I hadn't really seen a lot of his running game, but boy, showed that he's got good footwork and just got himself in the right positions at times. And of course, they took their opportunities. And like the Drua Reds game, looked to have that game wrapped up. But definitely, what you say, Paul, that last that last quarter of the game was all the Force. And once again, another team that'll look back and think, man, we missed an opportunity.
Yeah, look at this game, 22-7 at half time. The Waratahs didn't score in that second half. They only 38% territory. Basically, yeah, the second half they were just camped in their own half, and the Force just could not force themselves through. to score it, to get over the white line at the end of the day. Waratahs did enough in the first half to win it, and they're looking like a possibility of making the finals. Currently, they're fourth in the table, Waratahs.
Yeah, Paul, too. I think there was 2 or 3 line-out drives as well that were basically that were turned over. One you've got to be disappointed with, but 2 or 3, I don't think that's really acceptable at that level of rugby. I mean, to say you should learn from not getting it right the first time. Just in terms of some of the players I enjoyed watching, I like watching Kyle Goodwin. Just a real good player. Once again, really, really good footwork, and always seems to find a way through the defence. Really good footballer. Disappointment for me that they just didn't get Tony Pulu in space. On one opportunity, we did see Mataele take an intercept, but he got run down by Parisi, and I just wonder, had Pulu taken that intercept, it might have been good night nurse, Paul.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely. And I think seeing Carl Goodwin at the Force, the Brumbies, I would never really rated him, but I think he's one of these players that's gone to somewhere new. Actually, was come back from playing at Connacht, and in an environment I think that clearly suits him, which is nice to see. See him. I was listening to the What a Lad podcast today with the interview with Elliot Dixon, and one of the things he mentions about going to the All Blacks camp is that they told him to be himself, and he was, and then they told him, and then some of the feedback when he got dropped was, well, you're not serious enough in camp. And he's like, okay. And it's kind of like, you told me to be myself, and then when I am myself, you tell me not to be. So and I think that's probably is there's a question mark there about a camp where people don't feel comfortable and can't be themselves, as to how do you accommodate people. I mean, Eddie Jones, and I don't think that Elliot Dixon falls into this camp. Elliot Jones said you can have one character in a squad, and that was James Haskell for him, who's definitely a very individual person. But I think you do need to let people be themselves and breathe, rather than just trying to. Everybody must fit this cookie cutter, and if you don't fit this mold, then you can't play, which just to me isn't true. But anyway,
yeah. I was going to say, Paul, every team's had them. I remember the Blues with Ranger, Crusaders with the late Norm Berryman. Ironically, a couple of Northern boys. I know we're not all fun guys, I can tell you that. But yeah, it's interesting. I do agree. Every team's got to have a different mix, and if you've got a couple of characters in the team, that's a good thing. Yeah,
and look, Clay McMillan showed his frustration at Arcoy. There's a guy who really showed last year that he is a Super Rugby lock. Absolutely. I'm not whether he's an international lock, I don't know, but he's definitely a very good Super Rugby lock. But during training, he smiles and laughs, but clearly puts in enough training to be able to perform at the weekend. And because let's be blunt, you cannot perform at the weekend if you have not trained properly. It doesn't matter what you. And it's a matter of sometimes, as Elliot Dixon wanted to do, my way of dealing with pressure is to smile and laugh, and that's how I don't get angry and get into fights and games. I smile at people. So it's a matter of being able for coaches to be able to deal with different personalities, and just say, look, people don't have to all be the same. But clearly, I say Goodwin looks like he's in a place where he's really enjoying himself. So yes, that's kind of the weekend of rugby. One of the interviews I'm trying to get is with Pisaguz Sawakula, because there's a player that we kind of mentioned him earlier, but 2 years ago, kind of burst onto the scene, and we suddenly were like, kind of, who's the replacement for Kieran Reid? And we kind of had Mekaleti Tu'u, Sawakula, and Hoskins Tutu all come through at the same time. A couple of seasons ago. Last season, Mekaleti Tu'u kind of and Sawakula both had quieter years. I think it's fair to say, and didn't progress in the kind of way that we kind of the bunches were perhaps expecting. This year, Sawakula really has hit the ground running at the beginning of the season. So I'd love to understand, what has he done during the off season? Is it something emotional that's working? Is it something that's physical? These changes, training technique? Is it a mental approach to the game? Because he's done something clearly in the off season that means that he's actually able to play his best rugby at the moment.
Well, one question I'd love you to ask him, Paul, because he seems to play all his game, whether he's playing in the amber and black jersey for Taranaki against Auckland, or indeed whether he's playing in the Chiefs jersey against the Blues, but he always seems to play really, really well against Auckland-based sides. So I'd love to know what that is all about. So he definitely plays like he's got a little bit of a chip on the shoulder, and I think what he just showed on Saturday evening against the Crusaders, and just getting a little bit of consistency into his game, and of course terribly dynamic off the back of the scrum. We know how, and that seems to be a real thing with number 8s at the moment, is that just that dynamic carry off the back of the scrum. Even if we quickly switch back to those Aussie Super games, we saw Harry Wilson dynamic off the back of the scrum, Harris for the Waratahs. Boy, these guys are just so quick over the first 10 metres. Can be a bad thing as well, Paul, especially when you run away from your support.
Well, yes. Players who know when to slow down is it's amazing what a great skill that is to let your support catch up with you. Definitely. So folks, that's that's our kind of little sort of chat, what we've seen from the last round. Let's look forward then to the next round. Now there's been a reschedule, folks, with the Hurricanes being given an extra day to prepare for their game against the Chiefs. That game has been switched to Sunday, and the Crusaders versus the Blues has moved to Saturday. But let's give you our predictions now then for the games. First up then, assuming that it actually goes ahead, because obviously we've been talking already about the fact that Highlanders have, it sounds like, have got COVID issues, and they'll be able to put a team together. Highlanders versus Moana Pacifica. With that news, and with the way that Moana Pacifica defended against the Crusaders, I'm tempted to go Moana Pacifica by 3 on this one.
I'll go the other way around, Paul. I'll go with the Highlanders. I still think they should still have enough quality to beat Moana Pacifica. They wouldn't want to be the first New Zealand team to lose to MP. I think they'll get the job done, and I'm going to go 12 and over.
12 and over. Wow. Look, the Highlanders so far lost. So the record this so far has been they lost the Chiefs by 10 points, the Crusaders by 15, the Hurricanes by 7, and the Blues by 12. Yes, they should have too much for the for Moana Pacifica, but I'm going to say with that COVID issue, my $3 is going on the men in blue. Actually, they're both in blue, aren't they? Sorry, the Moana Pacifica boys in blue. Then we have the Clash of the Titans over in Australia with the Brumbies up against the Reds. Wow.
Yeah.
This is a tough one to call. I'm going to go with the Brumbies because they're at home and they've started the season better. Brumbies by 7. But the Reds are getting, after a couple of shaky games, have started to get into their groove.
I'm going to go with you, Paul. I think the Brumbies, I think they're just due to get one over the Reds at this stage. And, not a lot of love lost between these two teams. I'm going to go Brumbies.
The other argument is that they know how to beat the Brumbies with that one. Then we have a Saturday afternoon game with the Fijian Drua taking on the Western Force. Ooh, this one is it's a home game for the Fijian Drua, so over in over in Queensland. Deary me.
Try New South Wales, like Hutt Oval.
Oh, of course it is. The Fijian Drua are based in Queens. We're based on the Gold Coast, so I'm surprised. Some reason why it is down in Leichhardt Oval.
Probably because with all the floods and what have you.
Yes, sorry, forgot about that one. Look, Fijian Drua beat the Rebels by 5. Against the Force. The Force should beat them. So I'm going to go force by 3. But the Drua showed in that 10 minutes that if you don't keep on top of them, they will. But it's going to be a narrow one, as Simon says. I'm going force by 3.
The Drua were very good last week, but I think the Force they'll bounce back. They'll just have enough, but I don't think there's going to be a lot in this game. I'm thinking maybe a margin of 7-10.
Yep. We've then got the Crusaders hosting the Blues, and the Crusaders have just lost at home. Good luck, Blues. I just can't see it happening. I mean, lightning doesn't strike twice. Crusaders by 7 for me against the Blues.
Yep, I'll go along with that. I'll go one step better. I think the Crusaders by 12 and over.
We've then got a second game in Sydney with the Sydney Cricket Ground. Waratahs up against the Rebels. Look, the Rebels are the worst team in the comp, Waratahs by 10 for me in this one. Look, the Waratahs, whilst I've said I'm impressed by them, etc., that's because impressed compared to my pre-season expectations, which was they would lose every game this year, pretty much. But I still think they'll be too much Rebels.
I think they've recruited really well, but more importantly, I think some of their younger guys that they had, first year guys like Harris, like Will Harrison, they're all starting to basically stand up. You know, they've got they're actually a really, really big pack when you actually see them down at ground level or standing next to other teams. So they've got a bit, and they've got a few guys to come back in as well. They were missing their halfback who pulled out with injury, and of course they've still got the likes of Hooper to come back in this team.
The captain is missing. But yeah, they've also, as you say, the recruitment's been well. Ned Hannigan brings experience. He's a Wallaby. Look, he took a lot of flack, but when he was a Wallaby, because I guess people expect him to be more than he really was. But I think he's a decent player. He then asked Will Harrison, he's still a young kid, mate. We'll put you at 15. And how about you and Donaldson, between the two of you, manage the game rather than everything is on Harrison's shoulders, which is what it felt like last year. Was that the entire Waratahs was, okay, Harrison, you have to lead us around the park, and if you don't get it right, we lose. Whereas I think that's I think that balance has been good for them. So yeah, so Waratahs by 10 for me. Finally, then the Hurricanes versus the Chiefs. Look, who knows what kind of team the Hurricanes are going to be able to put out, put bluntly, and what kind of shape are these players going to be in after they've come back from COVID. So irrespective of anything else, you've got to go. You've got to back the Chiefs in this one. I'm going Chiefs by 10.
Yeah, I think they'll want to. Yeah, I think they'll want to keep it going. That victory over the Crusaders is just going to give them so much confidence. I would imagine they'll probably have a few bodies back as well. I think that's the other thing that we kind of understated with that win against the Crusaders was the guys that they had missing. And you know, when you consider they had the likes of Nankivell playing on the wing there, obviously Gatlin is not their number 110. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and look, and when we say that, the again, this is another one of those things about I keep saying about how thin these squads are. Alex Nankivell is a really good Super Rugby player, but he's a really good 12 and 13. He is not a 14. He's not a winger. Let's be honest about it. But he did a decent job considering what he was. Yeah, the thing he was put into. We also had some Six Nations then to have a chat about. The fourth round heading into the last round this coming weekend, which for those of you that don't like to sleep will be an absolute humdinger, because this weekend we have Wales versus Italy at 3:15 in the morning, followed by Ireland versus Scotland at 5:45 a.m. and then France versus England at 8 a.m. on Sunday morning. So a cracking lineup there. But let's just quickly look over the games from the weekend. Wales lost to France 9-13. Now, I think a lot of us expected France to win by more. And looking at that scoreline, you'd say, wow, Wales are in this. But in reality, France got in front, and they never really looked like not being in front. They didn't run away with it, but it's one of those ones where they always look secure.
Yeah. It was, it was one of these games where was probably played between the two 22s as well. A lot of high kicking, and I just thought France really just did enough to sort of dominate that area. The one clear chance that Wales did get was from a cross kick and an inside pass. Had it gone to hand, I think it might have been Jonathan Davies put the pass down. Who knows what would have happened? But in reality, did they deserve to win? I kind of disagree with Dan Bigger, the skipper of the day, who said, he thought they did enough to win. No, you didn't. I don't think you did enough. I don't think you did enough to win. Although there was some really memorable. I thought some really memorable performance. Toby Faletau, I thought, was very, very good on the day. Like the look of the halfback, which for Wales, who just escapes me at the moment, but he's a heck of a good.
Thomas Williams, isn't it? I think. Yep, Thomas Williams.
Yeah. Very, very, very good runner, but all in all, we just never really saw enough of the outside backs. Probably the best being Cuthbert, who was pretty good while he was on the paddock. Not much more than that. As for France, not a bad thing when you can play. I'm just trying to look for a good word to actually come up with, Paul, where they
kind of play within themselves.
Within themselves, yeah. And they pretty much did what they had to, to the point where, even Dupont and Intermac didn't really stand out, if you know what I mean. It was just one of those games.
Yeah, well, again, where they didn't quite click, but they still had enough, I say, to stay. I mean, Felipe Faletau has come back from injury. He's had like 3, I think it's his 3rd or 4th game back, which shows what a class player he is. Josh Navidi as well. It's only his 2nd game back, I think it is, from injury. So Wales getting a few players back from injury. Look, Cuthbert, a player who was one of the most hated figures in Welsh rugby. His renaissance has been fantastic, and it's great to see. He never was as bad as people suggest. Even if I did hear a story about when he was in Hong Kong with the Lions and was out on the piss until like 5 o'clock in the morning ahead of the game against the Barbarians. A game I went to, and a game that really was a total waste of time and I would never go to again. But just too one-sided. But anyway, happy for Cuthbert, considering that flack he's taken historically. Italy versus Scotland, 22-33. Look, Scotland, Italy have had too many injuries to be competitive at this point, unfortunately. I've not seen the game, but the scoreline doesn't particularly surprise me, and it didn't blow out. So well done to Italy for keeping it sensible, even if they did have a try as the Hooter went.
Yeah, I think they're up. Scotland were up 33-10 with about 20 to go. Unloaded the bench, and listen, credit to the Italians. They come back and scored a couple of tries, but like you say, a really late one, which gave them a lot more respectability.
Yep, and then England versus Ireland. Look, dead set red card all day long. If you're going to tackle with your head at someone else's height and you headbutt them, however intentional or unintentional, you're going to get a red card. Ryan went off the pitch, didn't come back on. A player who is a wonderful player. I mean, had some sort of record like 20 or 30 odd games with Leinster and Ireland without losing. Was a fan. But has had some serious concussion issues, and this is another one to add to that. It was one of the things that meant he didn't go on the Lions tour. Yeah, dead set red card. I don't see what anyone has got any problems with that.
Yeah. No, I've got no issues with the red card. My only issue is just in and around, keeping the contest, and for me, it's just about having that player replaced. But that's another debate for another day, because it'd be remiss of me not to say I personally thought this was the game of the weekend in terms of intensity. It was a test match of the highest order. You got to give England a whole ton of credit here. To have stayed in this fight against what is a very, very good Irish team at the moment. And I must admit, with 19 minutes to go, I thought the upset was on the cards, because where England were basically winning the battle, they were winning the aerial battle. And that was basically keeping in the game. And, for them to stay in the game, you've got to have your world-class players stand up. And in that case, that's exactly what England had. The likes of Mario Itoje was just absolutely sensational. Jamie George, I thought, was very good. But I thought the English scrum, even despite being down a man, just really, really impressive at scrum time. And if you're an English supporter, it's a performance you should be really, really actually quite proud of. I mean to say, sometimes that final scoreline, that final try at the end, I thought to myself, probably just blew it out a little bit more than what it was. And I'll tell you what, with 20 minutes to go, if you looked around at the coaches, we all know how stoic Eddie Jones is. Well, if you looked across to Andy Farrell, well, jeepers, I'll tell you what, his face was almost cast in stone. And I think that just shows you how concerned they were with 20 minutes to go.
Yeah, it was 15-all at that point. I'll be honest, I gave up at half time and went back to bed. They needed to sleep, but look, England kept themselves in it. But I always felt that Ireland would, with the extra player, would come through in the end, which is what kind of happened with the sort of those 17 points in the last 15 minutes, which, as you say, which made it balloon out. But that's what happens when you're having to do all the extra work for an extra player, is that you run out of steam at that point, that kind of point, and good sides will then find their way through. And Ireland is a good side, and
that's what Ireland. They actually showed some composure. It would have been easier to have lost your composure, but a couple of changes. They brought Conor Murray on. Once again, we know what a good high kick game he's got. They won a couple of key battles, and of course they moved a little ball, a couple of inside passes, and one player who I am so impressed with. He was so good against the All Blacks. He scored that wonderful try. When he carried is Caelan Doris, who's only 22, 23 years old, former Ireland under 20, plays for Leinster. Jeepers, at 6'4", this kid's got a really, really big career in front of him, and I think he fully appreciates the way the modern game, or the way the modern six actually plays. Very, very good performance. But you speak of other good performances, probably Jamison Gibson-Park's best performance in an Irish jersey. I'm pretty sure, though, Andy Farrell probably wasn't overly pleased with him when he took a quick tap when the score was, I think it was 15-all, and it amounted to nought. But on saying that, he took a quick tap in the first half, which resulted in a try to Hugo Keenan. And also James Lowe, is he the one that got away from New Zealand rugby? Well, I'll tell you what, he's showing he's got a good skill set for international rugby, especially with that left foot, and he's just taking every chance. And I think probably at the end of the day, I think Ireland won't be completely happy how they won, but I think they'll be more than happy that they got the job done.
Yeah, exactly. They got the job done. They're going to this last weekend, and so let's run through those three games. I mean, Wales versus Italy. Look, Italy just sort of lost by 11 points to Ireland at home. Wales, they've got to travel to Wales, so you've got to put Wales by 15 for me on that one. What's your number? Because let's be honest, Wales have got to be.
Yeah, I think that's a good number, Paul. I'll go 18 plus.
Ireland then play Scotland, who have been a bit up and down. I mean, look, at home they've been they beat England by 3, but have lost to France at home. But again, they got behind and we're never going to catch up. They lost away to Wales by 3 points. This Ireland side is way better than this Welsh side. So I'm comfortable to put Ireland by 10. And again, perhaps I should go a bit more than that.
No, I'll go with that. I'll go 12 and over.
And then you got France up against England for the Grand Slam. So far, they've beat Italy by 27 and Ireland by 6 at home, and away Scotland by 19 and away to Wales by 4. Look, I can't see them having another quiet game like they did against Wales. This is at home, in front of their own crowd, up for the Grand Slam. France by 15.
Yeah, they'll definitely know what they have to do, and I have a funny feeling that the only thing for the French will be the pressure, knowing that they have to win. Paul, I think the good thing for England's point of view, they're out of it, so they can go there with nothing to lose, and basically play with gay abandon. I suppose the only thing for the English, just in terms of the physicality of the game that they played against Ireland, how much have they got left in the tank after that performance? So based on this, listen, the French haven't won the Grand Slam for how many seasons now, Paul?
Lots.
I think there could be a party in Paris on Saturday night, mate.
I think there is. Now, if you look at the using Super Brew, look at the historic results, you can see that the French wins haven't been that frequently over recent history, and their biggest win has been by 7 points. However, this is a team that's maturing, and I think now is their kind of time, or from I think a lot of people are talking about them being favourites for the World Cup, but I think it's perhaps a little bit premature. Because they've just not done it at that level before. But so perhaps 15 is a bit high, or perhaps I'm just a depressed Englishman who is knows that he's going to lose, which is a bit of a problem. Cool. That's how things are. I will be at the Super Rugby Aupaki tomorrow. So become a supporter over at patreon.com/Enter Sport Radio for all my coverage of that, and that my day out at the rugby podcast. I'll also be there on Sunday as well for the final round of Super Rugby Aupaki as well. So look, do help support me, folks. Petrol is not cheap at the moment. Let's be honest, even with whatever announcement has come out today. So it's going to cost me a bunch in petrol just to get to Hamilton and back again on both those days. So if you could support me, that'd be much appreciated. And Stephen, are you another day at home on the sofa watching rugby? And he's still on mute. Come on.
Sorry, I basically switched off. Sorry about that, mate. No. I'll probably be on the couch. I'll just see where I am. I might get out and watch a bit of preseason club rugby. I'm basically hearing that Auckland Club Rugby and both Auckland and Northern Club Rugby probably pushed back to a mid to late April start for the new 2022 season.
From a Thames Valley point of view, I think it's looking like the same as last year, where they're going to have their coast versus country sort of split tournaments to start off with, and then have the other tournaments. So I'll be back I'll also miss training tomorrow night because I'll be at the Super Rugby Aupaki, but I'll be back at training on Thursday night. Obviously, not actually running around myself, but just there to watch and help the kickers with collection of balls and have a beer or two. Is my goal. So, folks, enjoy the rugby. Don't forget to follow us at DrivingMaul on Twitter, which is where I kind of is where I kind of live, and become a supporter at patreon.com/NZ Sports Radio. Cheers. Have a great week. Catch you all next time.